And the second item was use of town property, so we'll start with motor vehicle licenses. If you're okay with that?
Three of them?
That's just
Oh, it's just the
one
motor
copy.
vehicle, I got you, okay.
Mhm. It was a copy for each of you.
Alrighty. Motor vehicle license, class 1, Higgins Energy Alternative, Inc. I'll just list them all, and unless you have an issue, we'll just make a all-encompassing vote.
I think that's fine.
Okay. Class 2, BC Auto, PNF Services, Inc., White Valley Motors, Inc., Motor Specialties Company. Class 3 is Motor Specialties, Inc., and W.E. Clark Jr. Excavating. I have a motion to,
Yeah, I have a motion to approve all of these licenses listed.
I second that.
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Just verify with Fay and Andrew that all their taxes and fees are paid and current on these.
Yep, and their bonds are attached, so.
Okay. All you,
Who's seconding it?
I second
He
it.
seconded.
You're right, I.
You did.
Vote yes, call for vote.
Aye.
Aye. No, no one to say no. That vote's done, accepted, approved. The next one was a request to use town hall by the Democratic, what?
Caucus.
Caucus. Ann Goby's office was requesting to use town hall this Saturday.
Well, no, it's not Ann Goby's office. His aide Tyler is
Oh.
coordinating this.
Oh,
So
Tyler,
is requesting.
let me rephrase it. Ann Goby's aide is making the request on behalf of the Democratic Caucus to use town hall. It is this Saturday,
Yes, the 13th.
the 13th.
Presume there's no conflicts, we've already checked that.
Yep.
That was good.
Any concerns with that review?
Yeah.
Had any concerns?
It's Saturday.
The only question is, with this, do we usually get the normal fee, 50 or 100?
Whatever you guys want to do.
I was super
Out
normal.
of the minimum
sure if
50,
this-
I don't know if they consider themselves nonprofit or if they fall into that category because they're
I'm sure they fundraise.
a party. So I would suggest that we would follow through with the appropriate based on whether they're a .org or a not.
You know
So,
they don't pay taxes.
I don't
So-
know if
so
they
they
have
can
a
pay
funding
the-
mechanism though. I don't know if this group has a funding mechanism.
did they request the fee to be waived?
I don't think he knew there would be a fee. It's kind of like an open public meeting.
I would make a request that, I guess I'll make the motion to approve the use of town hall, but work out the payment plans and let them know that in the future that they definitely need to know that there is a fee for using town property.
Okay.
So waiving it for this time and future.
Not waiving it.
No, we're gonna work out.
We're gonna try to get it.
Yeah.
If it comes to something, we can work through it, but,
Okay, I'll second the motion.
any further discussion?
Heat lights still there.
Yeah, it's, I'm not saying that, yeah, I agree. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I just have you guys sign these licenses so I can distribute them?
Sure.
They're all there. There's pens
Okay,
up on the edges.
I guess I would say at this point, do we have a motion to adjourn?
You're not adjourning now. You should probably make a motion to adjourn following finance committee. Oh, you're the only one that's gonna
He's
be
gotta
here.
stay, so we'll be adjourned.
In case Charlie shows up.
Motion to adjourn following the completion of the finance committee meeting, I guess, is that the right motion?
Mhm.
All right, second.
Aye. Great. You know, let you do it first, and then you can run.
Just make sure she's happy with me before I
Exactly. Thank you.
Otherwise I'll be coming back.
Yeah, you wanna call your meeting to order?
Yep. Tonight, Andrew, we are gonna go over your
Yep.
package of it.
Okay. So I guess first, starting off, Does anybody have any initial questions before I go through anything on here, after looking through it? Just got it 5 minutes ago. All right, great.
I got it in the email.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if anybody's looked through the email, if anybody's got the detail or had any.
I just want to say it's an outstanding report.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the best ones we've ever had. Very good job. Must have taken a lot of time.
It's a start, so, still a lot of work to go on, so. Pretty much this is, I kind of preface this by saying that as early as this is, 80% of the numbers are, are guesses at this point. We do have the department requests, and a lot of the recommendations that I've put into here are based off, primarily based off guess on the larger side. So your Quabbin School District number, your insurance rate, your retirement. A lot of the Worcester County retirement, a lot of those numbers are not known right now. So we have to kind of plug in what we think the growth is going to be on that to try to get us at zero. So what I'll do is go through here. So the budget that I presented shows what basically a 2.5% increase in the tax levy. That's what I used as the baseline on the for the tax revenues. So on the revenue side, I basically used what our full, our full tax rate capacity would be. As you can see from last year, we had a new growth rate of 161,463.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry.
could we reference the page we're at?
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm jumping all the way up to where the budget summary is. That just kind of goes through everything.
It's basically last year's sort of look, right?
Right, it
Yeah.
compares 17 actual, 18 actual versus the 19 requests
I can give you
and
guys tabs.
Yeah.
recommendations.
I'll bring tabs to the next meeting
Yeah,
and just stick in,
Yeah.
Okay. No, I have some.
yeah, yeah.
They're not gonna be fancy, Brian, but I have some.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, no.
Continue, please.
All right, so anyway, I'll make sure you guys are
No, it's
all
not.
set.
Wait a minute.
There's-
It's early.
No, it's gotta be back.
No.
No,
Towards the center.
For the 5 year.
couple more pages, flip a couple more.
After-
Sticking.
After the financial policies.
Right there.
Okay.
Yes. Budget summary. Yeah, so we're just gonna look at the numbers rather than old stuff. So, with the starting beginning period levy limit, as you can see, I started as 19 with the 7805,228 for the beginning. Added in the 2.5% increase, 195,131. And then you see with new growth, looking at prior years and what we've gotten in from new growth, a lot of that new growth has been based off of these new solar projects. Those are basically done. So we have to look at what the growth is gonna be after that, and I think 50,000. I think that we'll still be able to hit the target. I don't think it's gonna go much more than that, despite that we've had years that have been here. So that's kind of a number that we're really gonna have to keep an eye on and see where it goes. So that comes to the ending period levy limit of 8,050,358, and then includes the debt exclusions for sewer, Ruggles roof, and the common project. So the total amount that we will be able to raise off taxes for next year is $8,414,736. In calculating the revenues, I included that with an estimated, under the town administrator recommendation, that is a 2% increase in cherry sheet revenues over last year, which is basically pretty consistent with what the growth in statewide has been over the last few years. So that's, I think in the last few years, actually 2.5%, but it still keeps it on the conservative side. By the end of this month, we'll know exactly what the number is. Well, not exactly, but we'll have a first guess from the governor of what that number's gonna be. For local receipts, I broke that estimate down. In the next section of your budget, about 4 pages down. So this is how we currently, where we stand for the last few years with our local receipts. I have 17 estimated versus the 17 actuals, and you can see they were about, they came in about $100,000 over from those two. Based off of where we currently are in FY18, these numbers were reported to the state, the FY18 estimated numbers, of where we're at. So looking at 19 and being a year away, we're basically looking at staying pretty consistent. There isn't really anything that is going to increase substantially. The building permit number, you'll see that back in 2017, there was a big increase in that for the actuals. That's mainly based off of the solar, or the building fees from the solar. The motor vehicle excise, you'll see it at the top. I'm projecting those to be a little bit lower because typically they that number fluctuates over a 5-year span. You usually get 1 year where people buy a lot of new cars and then it kind of tails off. So 5 years later, people go, the same people that bought cars 5 years ago are going to buy more new cars. So you can see in 2017 we had a pretty good healthy number over what we had anticipated. We're anticipating that this year it's going to be a little bit lower than that. So for 19, we should say it's going to stay pretty consistent and probably be a little. So that's where we come up. That's where I came up with these numbers for the local states.
As we go along through the year, we can see how we're going.
Yes.
And we can make adjustments to that.
Yeah, and we'll be able to see whether or not 18 is going to come in higher than where we're at, and that'll give us a good indication of whether or not we should bring 19 up.
Right.
Or, we might find out about a project that's submitted a building permit that's going to increase our new growth for the next year, and that might help out too. It's kind of like we go off of building permits from this year to figure out what we're going to get for next year. So.
Usually the building inspector will give you those.
Yeah, and she's basically predicting that there's nothing new coming in. So that's where we're at right now. So going down to the next line, the past revenues as far as expenditures. I put in a couple numbers here for Quabbin because really I don't know where they're going to come in. On the request side, I put in what would equal a 5% increase. For my recommendation, I'm putting in a 2% increase. So I'm hoping that the numbers that come in from them off the top are closer to that 2% because that's going to allow us to make a balanced budget. If not, we're really going to have to cut in places that we don't want to cut. And again, that's pending, some of those larger numbers coming in and where that's going to be. So I think that it's going to be prudent on the town to try to work with the school to make sure that number stays around 2% of an impact for us person this year, or FY '19.
Well, they worked with us for the first time last
Yeah,
year.
right.
That was the first time, so hopefully they'll do the same each year.
What was it last year, Cliff?
Yeah.
What was it last year, the percentage from going?
It was about 2%.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
2.1, somewhere in there.
But they had asked, what was the first one they had asked for?
It was higher than
Oh, it was like
I think it
8 or
was
9,
higher,
wasn't
yeah,
it? And it
yeah,
came
it
down
was
to
higher
5 at
than-
one point,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
We plugged 5.
yeah,
That's what you're
right, it
recalling.
was 8 or 9.
I think it was 8 or 9.
Yeah, so these, that's why I put as a request, just kind of like a, hey, let's say they come in at 5, you know, I'm recommending 2.
Yeah.
That's just kind of to set that benchmark. And then just kind of going through, as you go down the line, you'll see that, you know, some of them I highlighted in orange for the request. Those might have been higher numbers that I didn't have. I didn't get a requested number at the time I was putting the budget together, so it was, I'm putting this in as a number that I think that we can use. Down the line, we might get the department's actual request, but this is what we're gonna use as a baseline right now. Looking at it.
Down the road,
Well,
to get their, have they submitted their budgets to you now?
no.
None of the departments have.
Well, the departments have. The departments that are highlighted orange have not.
Have not.
Usually when they've done that, we just level funded them, we didn't put any increase in.
But that's kind of like a notification to you guys that I put a number in here, but that is not a number that they've come to me and asked me for.
But that's a number that will work with the balance budget.
Right.
As it stands right
Right.
now. And why, you sent that letter out, what, in December,
Yes. Well, I sent that out in
November? And they signed it, right, that they received?
Yeah, I know.
November.
Most did.
For the most part, I got.
Not all
it
departments
back.
signed that,
I
though.
don't know why.
We just, yeah.
And do you know what the problem is with certain
Yes,
departments
you
not
can put it in.
submitting their budget?
That they didn't have enough time to do it. But then again, you know, it could be based off of too that these are dependent on commissions approving them, and might not want to share that information until they get full approval from their commission too. So.
Andrew?
I'm not- Yep.
What is the reason for you almost doubling the Parks and Commons?
Oh.
If you'll notice under cemeteries, it drops significantly. They've moved the cemetery line item for the individual from cemetery to Parks and Commons because it would be managed by the DPW.
The mowing.
So the.
Came before the
mowing will
DPW
go to
commission.
DPW.
So the Parks employees are.
The cemetery,
seasonal.
the
Yeah,
cemetery
the
seasonal
seasonal.
employees moving over
Okay.
to the Parks and
Yeah.
Commons budget.
I think that was requested from the cemetery because they don't have anybody that's able to manage those people. So they want somebody to manage, be able to
Yeah.
manage them.
DPW superintendent is managing him as a de facto anyway, so
I remember something was being said about that last year. Yeah.
The Rutland Regional Dispatch number, I did receive that last week, at least their preliminary number, and it did come in under what the estimate was, so.
Under the 156?
Under the 156, I actually have that right here. 149,289.
We like that.
149.
And that, what was the date on that?
Mike had handed me this last Thursday, so
Okay.
he said he was gonna email it to me, but I didn't get it.
that's
Okay.
his estimate for next year.
They
Yes.
said they
Right
were
now.
gonna hire a guy that could lower the price for cars.
So they just finished their.
I'm over.
Yeah.
So that addresses any changes in that.
Makes
Right,
sense.
that was,
Yeah.
the only impact to that, and we were discussing it today at the ACO meeting, was that they don't know what they don't know what the retirement, the insurance, all that impact would be, and that would be something that would bring it a little bit by percentage points, or by just a little bit. It wouldn't make it a game changer. So, but that's based off of estimated expenses, not not those mandated increases, so. The one you might outlier here that might look like it's a real differential, and just to give you a backup on, is the senior center one, where it says
Mm.
77,206. That's more of just a differential on how to present that how I want to present that number, because a portion of their funding, a good portion of their funding is based off of the support and incentive grant. And I
Yeah.
guess in the past, that hadn't been calculated when it went to town meeting in the appropriation request. So the 77,206,
It's on there.
not the senior center director's position.
I'm sorry.
So-
Yes.
The
It
senior
been-
center, remember how we separated out what was the grant money
Mhm.
Okay.
and what it paid for
Yep.
and what the regular? So it's in there. It's in their budget.
Right, maybe in their,
Andrew was saying
So,
that's not in the
It
budget.
didn't show in the summary the
In
same
this-
way as it did in the individual department breakdown.
right.
The
So,
department
I'd have to
breakdown
look
said
at that,
this
'cause
portion
I
was
don't- I
funded
think
by
it
the
was.
grant, but it was
If
the
you
other
have it
part
in
that
here.
showed up in the summary that
Um,
got presented at town hall.
so when we
Yes, but, okay.
when we revise this document and put under the town administrator recommended, it should show what the full amount is with the support and incentive grant, but show the support and incentive grant as local receipts. So that way, the numbers offset within the budget.
But that
I just,
way-
I did not.
No, that's not the way they wanted it, okay? Let me think now how they brought it, because it was a big differential
Who's
about it.
they?
The selectmen and the finance committee, years ago, when they first broke it apart. They first broke it apart because the senior center monies is not raised and appropriated. The senior center, without the grant, is what is raised and appropriated in the town.
Mhm.
And the grant goes to the senior center.
Right, but we also offset the.
So you don't wanna show it
Mhm.
You can
on
grab that.
your raise and appropriate at town meeting, because you don't need to raise and appropriate that full
Right, but we're
amount.
talking about offsetting that through, if we show it as a local receipt, we're offsetting that in the budget. So if you're saying that we're taking in $10,000 in a support and incentive grant, and you have $10,000 of grant-funded activities,
But it's not showing
then
that
it's
it's a
backing,
senior center grant.
but it's backing it out of the
I
raise and
know what you're
appropriation.
saying, but the people wanted to see what we were getting when we were doing, Charlie just came in, on
No.
the senior center. You know how we had them break it so that there's their budget, but then what the grant pays for is on a separate section? So
Mhm.
we have two totals. And the total that we request for the senior center is without the grant money, because the grant money comes in there and goes to the senior center to pay those things, right?
Believe so, yeah.
Now, Andrew's wanting to put it all on the raise and appropriate and show it coming into local receipts.
That's how he has it on the worksheet.
This is.
That's not in the budgeting.
Right, it's
That's
not
in the
actual.
worksheet is how he has it that way.
But it hasn't been that way before.
It's just showing the
Yes,
total number, that's
it
why I put
has.
this in.
This is just the
Has it showed
worksheet.
the-
Right.
Yes, the worksheet is what you're looking at.
The
This
77.
is not the
right.
actual budget. This is the magic sheet, as Ted has
Right.
always
Yeah,
called it.
yeah, it's a budget
So he's
worksheet.
putting the real numbers on the magic sheet, so you know
I'm
what the
not
full
sure that
budget
it was
is.
that way.
To run that building.
This is just to keep track of what they're actually, the whole amount they're spending.
Right.
This shows it right there.
I know what
the
you're
whole
saying,
amount.
but
That's it.
The
That's
se-
Like, Claire, that's like when,
I know the
We-
accounting, you don't have to
right, well, that's like
explain
what,
it.
that's like when we
I just wanna
fund
see
the
the sheet from
ambulance.
last, previous years,
That's like
and
when
see
we
if
fund
it
the
is.
ambulance.
because I didn't think it was.
You show.
Oh, it was never in this sheet.
One line and then you show.
It was never in that
In
sheet.
this sheet.
No,
No, it should have been.
it wasn't. That's what I think.
It was always around the 59, not the 76. And you had to look at their
It does
budget
when
to
you go
find
in
out
with
what the
raise and
difference was.
The
appropriate.
59 shows what the raise and
Raise and
appropriate
appropriate
numbers, the
isn't that
77
Right.
is the total.
But
Right.
you want,
I
we
didn't
want to
include it as a
see
local-
it.
See, the thing
We
is,
want to see it broken
The old
out.
way we did it,
We need
But
to
you
know.
can
We
in
never
their
knew how
budget,
much money
if you
was spent down
forward-
there.
If you moved along
Okay.
their
But-
sheet,
you'd think it was 55 or
it.
whatever,
Yeah.
but it's not.
But the levy worksheet,
I know
is
that
what
that
I'm
number needs to be
talking about.
updated.
Yeah.
I know it's an abnormality
pulled it
here,
out of here.
and
They
when
were
this
thinking I
next
was
round of the
meaning-
of the budget comes out, that'll be corrected. But I know
Right.
that right now, if you look at it, that's a deficiency, so.
Right.
You can go ahead, but I'll check it out on my levy worksheet at home. Because I didn't,
Okay,
as far
on
as I
this-
know, it wasn't on
On this
there.
sheet, then you would take the difference from the 59 to 77 and show it up here under local receipts, lumped in that thing.
I would show it as a local, basically, if you went to that detail sheet and I put it in two columns and I said, this is grant funded, this is how much is being funded by grant funding, this is how much is being funded by general fund. I took that grant funding total and I put that as a local receipt and put the total amount that was being raised and appropriated for the total amount that we're spending on the senior center in there, it would offset within the budget.
Okay, what I'm saying is, on this sheet,
59,955.
when you look at this sheet, you don't know actually what's in the local receipt number.
You don't.
It's
no.
just a
The
bundle.
local receipt number is a bundled number, which
Bundle,
is,
yeah.
which is presented in that next section,
Yeah.
to break it down to
Yeah.
what those numbers
Okay,
actually
so in the next section, if you want to find out what the hell's in it,
Right.
there should be a
Because it's a
grant
big
funding
number,
on
it
it.
shouldn't be an ambiguous number.
Right,
Yeah, we
okay, I
get
see
about
that.
$1.5 million and we don't know where it all comes from.
Yeah.
It should be detailed, and so, okay, we know that this specific local receipt is going to be a little bit higher, because one detail that we're working out right now is our regional IT situation.
Mm-hmm.
The local receipt number as presented does not include any funding from Rutland for regional IT, but I've also backed that number way down in the expense side. When we work out the details of how we want to proceed in the next fiscal year with our regional agreement, we'll take in what the cost impact is going to be, put it into the expense side, and then take whatever Rutland's contribution is on it and put it onto the local receipts.
Okay, but
So
the
it'll
thing is,
offset.
you also got a Hardwick
Correct.
revenue to go into that
Right.
senior center too.
Which
now.
needs to present itself at
Yeah.
some point.
See, Ted, right here. It's the 59059,
Right,
and that's the 59059 that is on the budget worksheet.
hmm,
The amount from the grant, this was last year, was 9,320. We like to see what we're receiving as a grant and what we're having to fund.
it'll be
it's
there.
just a matter of switching the
But
numbers
it's not
around
gonna
then.
be that way this year.
But Claire, it's just a
Right.
matter of, right now on this worksheet, just changing the numbers from down at the bottom to down at the top. It's that simple. So that's fine.
You're
We can just
flipping
switch
from
it around.
pages to page, you know, it's,
I understand the intent also is you're looking at what are you going to be paying out of this account?
Exactly.
And when you're done, it easily transfers to the accountant to build next year's budget. And it's not less the grant, it includes the grant.
Exactly.
So what are you presenting in front of the town is that higher number. So what he's trying to say is, this is the number we're gonna present to the town, and down here is where we're gonna get additional revenue to offset that cost.
Right.
So that's why the budget summary is showing, this is what we're gonna present to the town. Where before we didn't do that, and
no,
he's just trying
because
to
we
make it.
didn't want to.
Right,
and
but
the
it's
people
harder for
didn't
him
want
to
to.
transfer that to
They
the
didn't.
accountant in that manner.
They-
Because the accountant doesn't get the
But-
little backups, they just get the big account number.
Right, but the people at town meeting, Claire, don't get this budget worksheet.
No, no.
This isn't even in the workbook.
No, but we know that, I know that.
No, but
I
you're
like to
saying-
see it.
Right, you will see it at town meeting.
She wants to
You
see
will
it
I
see
wanna see it
before.
now
Right.
on
So
here.
it's just, it's simple, we'll just switch.
Yeah.
I
we'll
wanna
change the
see
numbers.
what we have to raise and appropriate. Any other grant stuff coming in, show it in a separate line,
It's right on the detail sheet.
because we're not having
Yeah.
to, we're not having to pay for it.
Well, if you turn to the details sheet for the Council on Aging,
Okay.
Yeah, the budget is the same way it's always been. It shows the difference.
Yeah, but coming to that front sheet, it's not.
Well, the front sheet is just showing what you expect to pay,
What
not what
is-
you expect to receive
Not what we're paying.
on that line item.
Not what we are paying as a town, Matt.
Yes,
No, because that's grant money coming in, the
the
9,000.
grant money is not what we're paying, it's what we're receiving.
Right, but that's paying for the senior center.
So is the tax levy, which is shown in another line
So
item.
And the
basically,
amount.
Andrew, on
Split
the
it.
budget worksheet, she's looking for the 59,293.
all right, so the 59,293, it says, FY19 TA General Fund Recommendation. That is the tax levy, right there, right next to it.
It's 2 lines back.
Sorry,
Mhm.
2 lines back, FY19 grant request. That is what is
Okay.
being taken from the grant.
And you're adding those two together.
Adding those two together to come up with the FY19 total department request. Well, I'm sorry,
But-
FY19 total department request
know how to
is the
explain this.
department's request.
I don't know how to explain
I have a general fund request, a FY19 request, then the total department request. And now I've just created the town administrator general fund recommendation. The other thing that's missing is that is a separate line, it says town administrator grant funding,
Right.
grant request. I did not break out my own recommendation on the grant funding.
I don't know how to explain it, but
So instead of having the grant in the local receipts,
Mhm.
she's looking for it to come off of the, up on the top.
and if you have to add another little column, but nobody sees this but us.
Everybody was gonna see this.
This
It's
is
gonna go
our
on the town
worksheet.
website.
Right,
It's public record.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a worksheet. And it's showing that the senior center, yes,
That's why-
without the grant money, it would cost us that, but it's not costing us that because we go for the grant.
Until the state or federal government decides not to fund the grant.
It's,
And people
So
like to see what the
we end up having
grant
to fill in
money
the
is.
gap if the grant doesn't come through.
That's exactly.
So we need the town to approve that.
it's just a matter of moving the numbers, it's
And
not
so
a big
that's
deal.
all. It
We
was
have
just a
it in lo-
discussion of what's the
instead
total cost for
yeah.
this line item.
But people
Yeah.
like to see if you're receiving grants and how it is reducing. It's a benefit for us to see that.
Right, but they don't even see that on the book.
A lot of people know it. A lot of people ask
Yeah,
about
but you're
it.
saying people wanna see it clear. Either they wanna know it or they wanna see it. They don't see it at town meeting. That's
I
the
wanna
point.
see it.
So you want
As a
everybody's
resident-
grants written? Every single
No,
department's grants? Well, why not?
This is a, this was when they built the senior center and they
Do I have
argued
Line
over
item
it was gonna
specific
cost
to
so
that
much
grant.
money.
Yeah, oh yeah, that was-
And then just
Yep.
parentheses COA.
Right,
I
but
was
you're
trying to find
saying
the
in
best way
only
to
one
present
department,
it,
you wanna
and
see the
after
offset. There's
looking
other
at that,
offsets in
that's
other
the-
departments
that's
with
the
grant
best
money.
way to
So
look at it.
either
And then it does.
you
Here's
plug in
this, but
grants
this
or
is
you
what
don't
we're
plug
not.
in grants. We never have.
I wanted
We
to
only
confirm
provide,
to find
put
They
out how
have
much
out to the
we're getting.
always
public what
done it.
we're asking
Because I
for
They-
the
didn't
tax
get a firm
revenue.
number on
They
the
have
department
always done it
grants.
for the senior center, when it was built,
I put
when
that
it was
into
new.
Eileen's hands to find, to get
Because
that.
that's
You
how
found
we,
that senior center?
the
page?
Barry
I haven't-
residents did.
We only,
That's how we did it when they built it, and people questioned the building on that senior center.
well,
They didn't wanna fund it,
well,
but
the
they
se-
showed them the grant is helping fund that building.
Can you make that correction?
Yeah, it's simple.
Correction?
Yeah, it's
Easy enough.
very simple.
Not a problem.
There you go. What else you got?
All right, so, continuing to go down, let's see. You'll see that in the request, I included a capital improvement plan for $100,000. And then on the other side, on the financing side, I offsetted that with $100,000 from free cash utilized. The only way that that's gonna go forward is, depending on what we come in at what we get for free cash, and that was just kind of like a general baseline number. When free cash is certified and should be within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have a better idea as far as what we actually have for money to go on to that. But at the back end of the binder, I included a kind of a preliminary capital plan based off of, it hasn't been vetted through the capital planning committee, but it addresses all the needs and identifies different funding sources in different years that we can use those funding sources to try to address those needs. How we do that is going to be dependent a lot on free cash and how much money we can free up in this budget, and also what grants are available to take care of a lot of those, because our operational funds should be 100% from our recurring costs and not taking, not using our revenues to fund our recurring costs. So that's something that we'll address down the line, but right now we're holding out based off of how tight the recommended budget is. The abatement number is a guess at this point. We have to kind of finalize that one. But it comes down to a total expenditure amount, including all of the other funding requests of $12 million, $12,259,015. It's hard enough to say. Looking at breaking that down, we're looking to offset that completely the sewer department's revenue, the 638, 191 that should come out of sewer. I've increased the ambulance receipts reserved about $25,000 because it is on track to be significant, or that much higher, because of funding the ambulances requests last year. And then the water anticipated receipts completely offsetting that request as well.
And before you move on, Andrew,
Yeah.
can I ask a couple of questions
Yes,
about,
yes.
just to make sure I'm
Yep.
understanding this
Yep.
proper?
Yeah.
These sheets that we just looked at, these are our total expenditures that you just went up to. You just tallied up, correct? Question number one, where does the Christmas decorations, which one does that fall under? Because that used to be separate, I don't see that there.
So that falls under Selectmen various.
Various,
Yep.
and that would be $1,000, or what was
I
it?
think it's 1,500.
1,500.
Yeah. So
It
that
has its
goes
own
into.
budget line,
So
but-
that goes to another thing that we're looking at a goal for next year. So we have it as a Christmas decorations line.
Holiday decorations.
Sorry, holiday decorations line. What we would like to do is make that into a line item that addresses all holidays and not just one,
Okay,
and have it focused throughout the town and not just uptown. And by doing that, we'd want to establish a holiday committee who's going to be in charge of citing this and overseeing the appropriations of those funds. We moved $500 out of our selectmen's expense, or our town administrator's expense line, to bring that number up to $2,000. So we're hoping to do more from that, but be a little bit more overseeing throughout the entire town rather than focusing it on one event.
okay. Second question I have is on the snow and ice.
Yep.
You have that down here for what, 30,000, I thought I saw? Snow and ice removal, 30,144.
That was last year.
No, 17. It's blank.
Yeah, but I don't see no amount here, that
For
should be roughly.
18.
That's overage. Normally that's taken from, that's one of those line items that you can,
Yeah, you could overrun,
You
I
can- you can
understand
over-
Yeah,
that.
but I
could-
think
but
that
we
number
can't-
can't be correct.
But what I'm trying to
Over.
say,
This-
What?
For the actual for
Sorry.
17?
what I'm trying to say is, shouldn't that, I think it's roughly 130,000 should be on this sheet, that should be our expense, because that's what we start them off at.
130,000 is actually shown in the
It's like,
highway department. I believe that's in the
Yeah.
highway department's line.
Right, that's built into the highways budget. The overage is
Right.
where you're looking at, Richie?
yeah, I see that overage.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
that second where you see snow and ice listed out, that's whatever they run over and we fund. But I think that 30,000,
It was a lot more than that.
I think it was 210, because,
Okay.
Yeah, it was
That,
more
that
than
might have,
30.
So that's three,
we'll check that, can we just,
yeah,
we'll make a
yep.
star on that one?
That's-
Not that it, that doesn't impact the,
yeah, this
the
was.
bottom line on the 19 budget, it's just, do you
No,
know what I
but-
mean?
Yeah,
yep, so the
That
extra
was
$130,000 that I'm talking about that we usually had for snow and ice,
Mhm.
that is included in the highway department budget.
Not extra. So
No.
highway budget's 130, well, just, I don't think it's 130, but let's just use 130.
For what, the snow and ice?
They budget 130, but historically, they go over.
Yes.
But as you know, they can run in the deficient
Yes,
or in the negative, and we supplement it after the fact. And last year, ironically, and it was very confusing, we supplemented them exactly what their budget was. So it was very confusing that we had 130 and 130. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
So here you
Yeah,
go.
so it was,
It's right here.
they had an exact
perfect.
overrun almost of what their actual budget was.
So that comes out to 105, and then the
it's
remaining amount.
105.
I think it's
So
like
that's the
120.
expense, and then the
On this worksheet,
salaries.
it's 105.
it's roughly about 130. 'cause
Right, it comes out to
Right.
130
Snow
between,
removal?
between the
Salaries
expense and
and
the
Not just
salary.
snow
salaries and
removal,
materials.
there's a couple
No,
lines of
so-
snow.
Snow removal overtime.
There's a, salaries and
Oh, the
expense.
salary.
So you
Yeah,
say
that's right.
24,000 and
Yeah.
then.
So, Richie, what you're looking, you got that? Last year, we were kind of all confused because the numbers were the same.
Yeah,
Or
it's 100.
at the end of the snow season, it ended up being $130,000
128.
over, and the real budget was 130. So it was very confusing why it was the same number. It just was,
So why does this say 30,000? That's incorrect.
I think that should
It's
be
incorrect.
100 something,
Yeah.
but we'll fix
No,
that.
no, I thought the reason it stated 30,000 is once you raise that, you can never lower it.
We're not raising it.
No.
No,
We're
No,
looking
that's
at,
why that overage of 30,000 stays at
No.
30,000, even if it goes to 100,000
The
next year.
30,000 is an actual number that we spent above and beyond the actual budget.
yeah.
And it's just an incorrect number. When we were
Right.
doing this, we must have plugged the wrong.
I
Right,
think
number.
that
that
was what the line
30,000
was.
match should say
Yeah.
130,000.
Yeah.
I believe you're right, yeah. It's fine, it's just,
I think it was more like
Right.
210.
that's snow
I
and
think
ice
it was
removal
2 something
overage, so
total.
once you go past
Yeah.
that $130,000 that's
Because there were a
appropriated,
couple of them.
the end of the fiscal year, you have to account for that.
you have to pay for it.
That's what in FY17 it comes for. It's not projected in FY18 because
We
we
don't
haven't
know.
gone through,
Mhm.
we haven't gone through the snow removal period
Right.
yet. It will, you know, hopefully it's not, it doesn't go over, but chances are it will because it pretty much does for everybody.
Yes, it does.
So we'll fix that $37,000 number. to
Okay, I
be-
But
just
we-
wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that the snow and ice was in there, that.
We can't budget for an overage in an account, pretty much.
Right.
We have to just expect the fact that it would go over and then we'll fund it, and normally that's funded either through free cash or.
And that's why that is
Yeah.
designed that way, that they
Yeah.
can go over without any vote, because you never know what the winter is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the selectmen have to approve, according to the accountant, the selectmen have to authorize the DPW to go into a deficient spending.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
Right.
yep.
We have not heard that they're close yet, so
Oh,
hopefully
they
not. It's
will.
only January.
It won't last long.
Anything
Thank
else?
you.
No problem. If you go to the next page, with the sewer debt enterprise fund, you'll see historically we've offset the sewer debt for about $75,000 of about $200 and something thousand impact. Last year, they increased their fees by, I believe, 10%, roughly. Looking at historical rates, it looks like they've had they've had some excess, or not excessive money, but they've had
Some retained earnings.
retained earnings. Thank
Yeah.
you. They've had some retained earnings in the past. It's anticipated that they still have retained earnings. 75,000 seems to have always come from that retained earnings amount. What we're proposing is to increase that to $100,000 for next year. That's the last year that they will be responsible for the debt exclusion payments.
So, or for one, some of them.
Well, for the sewer debt
Yeah.
exclusion.
Yeah.
If you look at the 5-year projection that I gave in FY20, that I think it's about $180,000 obligation drops off the table. So the sewer, after that point, would be fully self-sufficient. If they can take this one-time hit of 100,000, the FY '20's impact would be about 80,000. So it would actually decrease on that side every year from there. Obviously, it's gonna, we'll have to probably work with the sewer commission to make sure that this works for them, but I think it's I think it's a fair compromise, looking at, what the impacts are. So, 31,000 is the transfer from the water debt, $10,000 from New Braintree EMS. And so that comes, on the recommended side, comes out to a total even budget of, $0 one way or another. And then plugged in, we currently have $590,000 in stabilization. And then within the next few weeks, we'll know what our free cash certification number is.
So where will the money from the Hardwick towards the senior center go? Whatever number gets decided.
We mean, whatever number
They're-
gets
they're-
decided.
They're gonna
from-
pay,
so-
they're gonna pay so much, it's very similar to the
Right.
payment that New Braintree
So we-
makes
right.
for the ambulances.
I don't think Town of Barre can't spend that money, but I think we can offset
The
costs.
point is,
We can
if,
push costs to Hardwick for them to pay, is that
Well,
your
we
understanding?
have to work that.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't present that number in here, because there's still some issues to work.
what I'm saying is, the thing
Yeah.
is though, is the cost of them coming in the 77K.
Yes.
Then the money that they pay to help pay for the 77K, gotta show up somewhere.
Right. And we'll present that with
Right.
with the
Yeah.
the other grant fund,
Cool.
Yeah,
when we
and
update.
part of that,
Yeah.
Hardwick agreement was that at like 6 months or so, we would review it and see
Right.
where we're at, and we're right about that time now, so.
Yeah, say we just had the change of directors, we're letting her settle in, and it's gonna fall a lot on her to kind of assess that and figure out what those impacts are.
Yeah.
So,
Good. How's that working out? Everybody happy?
it's good, everybody's
Yeah,
happy.
everyone's happy.
Glad
I
to
talked
hear
with
that.
Hardwick, and they're very happy with it. so.
Yeah.
Good.
Andrew, on the
Yeah.
New Braintree for the EMS,
Mhm.
wasn't the talk about increasing that?
There is talk about increasing that, but right now, that's the agreement that we have in place. If you look at the 5-year projection, I did increase that amount in future years.
Uh-huh.
But until we actually sit at the table, agree to an increase that that they agree upon and we agree upon, then we're just gonna keep it at 10,000 rather than projecting any additional revenues that aren't there, so.
And then you don't have anything in from the Holden Hospital? Is that depleted, or is there?
No, it's not depleted, but when I talked to the chief about that, he had concerns about continually using that as a budget offset line. So I thought it was prudent to try to come up with a budget presentation that didn't include that.
Mhm. What is that money? Is there any designation definitely for that money?
I think it can only be used for, like ambulance expense. I think that's how that's written. We looked back on that. The money's coming from a trust fund,
Yeah.
Right.
and it's roughly about, maybe a little more than $12,000. I think we left a couple thousand to roll, and it sits. If we don't use it, it just
Yeah,
rolls.
We get more and more, so.
But I think it's expenses associated with the ambulance.
Yeah,
Mhm.
or like if they needed some equipment or something.
Correct.
They could use it.
Yep. And I think last year, one of the articles that we did, we kind of factored in that money as how to fund that article.
So that's the 1,000-foot view of the expenditures and revenue side. Just going through it, you'll see I just included a detailed kind of description of basically what went into this and how the impacts on the budget are, just as I described it. A guide for any citizens that will read this budget and try to understand it, that might have never looked at the budget before. A copy of what our financial management policies should be moving forward to really get us headed in the right direction, because the overall goal is to help improve our bond rating and get that reestablished. So that's pretty much what the goal of this budget is to get our bond rating back in good order.
What is it now? What is our bond rating?
It doesn't, we don't have one.
None?
No, we do not. Any bonding that we do is done at the state level, because, or we use as state bonds.
So our interest on any loans or anything?
It's whatever the state,
Yeah.
whatever loan the state is, it's basically a state house note, so whatever the bond rating capacity of the state is, that's what we're tacking on
How
to.
often do they review that? Every year?
Do they review
The
our
bond
bond?
rating, yeah.
I think when we request it,
When we
right?
request,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
If we feel that we're in better financial shape.
Okay.
I think it might have been 2 years ago that it was, I don't know if it lapsed or if it was taken away because of some issues that were ongoing, but I don't,
Yeah, I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly what the
I know at
reasoning
least
was
at this
why
point, we do
we
not
went
have
to
a
the
bond
State
rating.
House. I think because we were
Is
late.
it, is there a
some-
cost to get one, and is there a benefit to have one?
There's a definite benefit to having one. I mean, it's.
There is a benefit to having it.
Oh, yeah. Better the bond rating, the lower the interest rate. So,
So you-
More-
I was-
we get more options of who we wanna grab a bond from when you have a bond rating. You don't have
Okay,
to just go through the state, you can
A lot
go through
more.
different
Oh, okay.
investments. and-
I see.
So you actually get competition at that point versus
Yeah.
just a blanket state bond.
Mhm.
I think the one positive is that we're not looking for any loans right now. Right now, yeah.
Thank goodness.
Mhm.
right.
Okay.
So, just,
Would you go over,
Yep.
you talk about some definitions.
Okay,
And
yeah.
I think it's very important that we're on the same page here. And one of them is free cash. You talk about a free cash and operating it, and there's so many rumors about free cash, but somewhere in here, you dealt with it, and I'd like you to take a minute, can't find it now, and go over that.
So that's probably in the financial
It's,
management.
it's
side,
early,
section
it's
3.
early on.
Yeah, section 3 of financial management.
Take the
Right.
back of page 7.
Right,
I know, if you just count them.
I'm gonna have to, we're gonna have to page these buggers.
Yeah, oh, well, we can add numbers.
Yeah, sorry about the page numbers.
Yeah, okay.
For future.
Section 6 of financial management. It's on a back page, like a back side.
Section 3.
Yeah, keep going.
6, no, keep going.
Further,
That back side of that one that you're flipping right now.
Yeah.
this one?
Yep.
Okay, yep.
Alright. So, the base of free cash is that is what you had left over from the previous year, plus whatever was remaining as free cash from years prior. So,
Is it in an account that we can look at?
it is not in one set account, it is certified by the state. That basically says that we have this amount, and it's put as an, let me say, it's put as an accounting function. But pretty much that is determined at when the Schedule A is the Schedule A is submitted to the state, the books are closed. Because it takes into account what the town took in for revenues, that would have been over and above what was budgeted. So normally, the free cash and new growth, anything that came in over and above what was already budgeted, plus the amount that was not expended in the budget that was set. And then less, normally snow and ice is taken out of that, or any other liabilities that may have hit that they could take free cash for. Like say, we had applied for, let's just say we applied for a grant, and it's a reimbursable grant. Well, we expended the money down, but we didn't get the grant money back from the state. Well, it would hit our free cash to balance it out. You know, but the next year you get that grant reimbursement. It goes into it would go as a local receipt for the next year.
Okay, but the thing is, the good state hits us and say, on today you have this much. Okay? Tomorrow, can we look and see what happened in one day? Is there some place we can look? Then when we spend some, we should say, oh, today we had this, oh, we spent some today we got this.
So,
It can't be magic.
so I think I know what you're asking, and hear me out here. So I
Yeah.
think what you're saying is, so let's just say the state contacts us in 3 weeks and says, your free cash number is $200,000. Magic.
January 10th.
Yep, we know we have $200,000. That money cannot be spent unless at a town meeting. So we go to town meeting and we run $100,000 short in the snow and ice. So we fund $100,000. We know we're gonna have $100,000 left, okay?
Okay, so, but the point is, if they tell us this on January 10th,
That's what it is.
and January 11th, nothing happens, we should have the same amount.
Correct. You have
Okay.
that same amount
So
until you
it's
go to
somewhere.
town meeting.
Right.
It's somewhere, it's not in La La Land, it's
Correct.
somewhere.
Correct.
Yeah,
You can't necessarily
But it's-
spend it.
It's in
It's not-
cash. It's just not.
it's not
Okay.
on paper. That's how somebody explained it to me. It's
Wait a
not
minute,
on
if
paper.
it's not on
yeah.
paper, then
It's
I
right up
can't
here.
tell you how much you
I
got.
think it's on paper, but you can only spend it at a town meeting.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
It's
That's how they
certified until you
explained it to
close.
me.
Yeah,
It was- I
it's
think it
not
was at one of the
certified
finance
until you close the books
meeting.
on the previous year. You say,
No.
everything's been accounted for.
It's up
We
here.
had this much remaining.
Right.
That much remaining goes into your free cash for the, it goes into that amount of free cash and then is certified by the state that you actually
Right.
have that amount.
That's right.
So,
So you're saying that what you want is you want to have an account
what I'm saying is
somewhere,
that
so we know what we got.
what I'm saying is that that is a revenue source that was unreliable. And that the only use for that source of funding should be one-time hits. We shouldn't
All
look
right,
at
no
anything.
question, right.
We shouldn't be looking at anything that is reoccurring and saying that, well, each year for the next 5 years, we're gonna continue to take that out of free cash.
Gotcha,
But
exactly.
at the same time, we can't look at it and say we're gonna spend it down to zero because we're gonna have some the next year. Because when we have those hits like snow and ice, this is pretty much a reserve fund that is going to cover that we need to maintain some sort of buffer in that those unexpected hits can take. Because you also have stabilization. Stabilization can be used at any time
Right.
in the year. Those are pretty much your two lines of defense. when
But I
it
mean, the
comes
thing
down
is,
to
the free cash
unexpected.
has strings on how you spend it, just like you said, right? You
It's
have to
also
go to
the
town meeting.
Deadlines of when you have to
Well,
identify
I
what
mean-
you're gonna do with it before it rolls into the next year's unknown and it has to wait for
Yeah.
the state to
I wanna
verify
clarify
again.
something, 'cause I think-
So-
Okay, so that's the magic
Free cash
day.
is a temporary number.
Ah,
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
only have it between this like January, whatever time, until June 30th to do something with it. And if you don't, even if it's thrown in stabilization or another account that you set up for capital expenditures, it goes back into the ether as a number that will, at the end of the next fiscal year, the accountant will go through everything and what did we spend and what did we receive? And that will be that part of that magic number of unspent money that the state will certify, and then you'll have your like 4 or 5 month window again to figure out what to do with it.
okay, but let me ask you this. When some of that goes into the ether, is it green money, so when the next year I get red money, I can count that the green money's gonna
Well-
be there? Or,
It's not,
Yes. That
Okay, so
number-
it doesn't-
That number will stay, that
Okay,
number you
that's-
put in stays.
right, you
But-
can't spend it,
But it is now part of the bigger pool
Which
of the
you
next
can't-
fiscal year.
which you can't spend till you get,
Right, but it might get eaten up by
By
snow
un-
and overtime and those other things that showed up that you didn't have the immediate funds in the budget.
Oh.
So it does kind of go back into the bigger ocean, so it's not necessarily the same number during that next fiscal year. It's likely to grow, because you'll get the next
Yeah.
fiscal year's free cash added to it.
So one thing I'll just clarify, because this is something new. So according to the Department of Revenue, they want you to hold 5%?
They
What's the
would, they
number?
would want you to have at least 5% in reserves.
Rolling
Yeah.
reserve.
In that, basically, free cash
Which is-
account, which
Yes.
you're talking about here.
Stabilization.
No.
In all of your reserves.
All of it.
Oh, all the
A
reserve.
minimum of 5%. And pretty much, 10%, 5% of what your operational costs are.
Right,
So if you have a $12 million budget, at
5%.
minimum, 5% of that between your stabilization and free cash.
Oh, okay.
So in the past, I think what's confusing is
Free
that,
cash not allocated to that yearly capital account either, that's
Right.
emergency money, not
Right.
intended
They-
to be used 5%.
That you are not going to spend. So right now, we have about that 5% total in stabilization, which is good.
Right.
But we shouldn't be going into next year going, how can we spend our free cash down to zero?
Well, the thing is,
So-
where in the cycle of free cash?
Mhm.
Are we in the ether period?
We're almost at it.
We're almost
It's
there.
been sent to the state. We're waiting for the letter back saying, this is the number.
Okay,
And
so,
that's about a 3-week period. It was sent in the last day of the year, and we expect to get it within 3 weeks of that time.
okay, so when we get that, then we'll have money that can be spent. We wanna
At
keep.
town meeting.
At town meeting, you
Yeah.
wanna
Yeah.
keep some into your free cash account, and then decide
well, I
what you.
think.
You'll
so-
have a number to put into this budget now to figure out where it should go.
Yeah,
But I think that you should set up.
Well, not necessarily.
Well,
But-
yeah, stabilization, your other capital account you're talking
Well,
about,
you're,
that, you'll have a number that you know at town meeting, you need to make a decision on what to do with. So you'll have a number for you to start
Yeah.
reviewing and figuring out what to do with it.
but
So 200, you gotta figure that in this policy, it gives you a number of 250,000. You don't want your free cash number going under that amount. And that's after the snow and ice period is over. So it might be
Okay.
$400,000 now, but at
gotcha.
the end of the winter, you could theoretically spend that down to about $250,000 if you
Gotcha.
really went over it and brought it down.
Yeah,
This is basically setting it, saying, all right, we're gonna commit to at least keeping that balance in there, but it's not gonna go over 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Which is, pretty lofty, but if you have a couple of years where you got some really good revenues in, it could theoretically
happen.
come that high.
Yeah.
But you're setting that precedent that, okay, that number is basically either gonna be transferred to stabilization to hold,
yeah,
or we're gonna use that for capital, or we're gonna pay down our existing debt.
okay.
So,
Good.
or the other flip side of that is we don't have that minimum that we want to keep rolling, so we don't do anything.
Right,
And we let it,
build up to
we
try
let it
to,
go to build up.
Yeah.
and you might,
Yeah.
and
Which
if
is
you're,
something we've never done, and I think that's kind of the confusing part for everybody, is we've always utilized the free cash. They don't understand, we don't understand the letting it roll,
Right.
continuously letting it roll, because we've had situations come up where we've needed to utilize that free cash and not allow it to just keep rolling.
right, and I think it's just important to try to not, it's like, try to not touch the bank for a little bit.
In the past, we've had what we call a reserve fund.
Right. I
So-
did
Yeah.
include a proposal to reestablish that at a
Okay.
rate, at $5,000, just as a just-in-case fund.
Right, for emergency appropriation,
Yeah.
right?
so
Right.
that, so that would not need
Right.
town meeting approval.
No.
Right.
Okay, Brian.
Approval by the
Finance
finance.
committee.
It would need a joint board and
Oh,
employees.
good.
Yours and us.
I think it's just
believe.
finance committee.
It might
Nope.
be just finance.
I
I'm
think
not
it's
sure.
just finance.
I don't think so.
A
That's the
dual
way it's
role.
always been.
I think that might be like the interdepartmental transfers, actually, you're right, where it
Yeah.
needs both,
Yeah.
yeah.
I thought it was just
Mhm.
But
finance.
normally it would probably be recommendation of the finance committee
Mhm.
with final decision. by
Because
the
they
select-
come,
by the
they
select-
come to the finance committee.
Right.
For the
right, so for,
approval of
for
it.
probably a recommendation.
But we haven't had it.
So that's your 2% you're talking about here for the reserve fund.
Well, it's good
That
that
used to be
have
That was,
people
that's
stick to their
a
budget.
recommendation, I think, as
Is it got up
as
to
a base,
50,000?
I put in 5,000, just to start it.
Yeah,
And they were coming in for
Just to
everything.
say, hey, we have a reserve in case, but there's not much you can do about it. I mean, you might say, hey, you know, somebody comes in with a request for funding, let's just say, you know, Wachusett Greenways, you know, they've requested $1,000, but in looking at it, that might not be feasible to build into the general fund, but if they come in, you might be able to say, well, we can take that from a reserve, but chances are you might wanna really hold that in case, you know, the boiler craps out in the middle of the
Yeah,
night.
right,
We need to
right.
come up with an extra $5,000 to fund it,
Right.
so.
good.
Yeah, we haven't had reserve fund in quite a few years, and,
Long time.
I mean, I have to give the departments credit because they've all stuck to their budgets. It
We
forces
made 'em.
everybody to stick
We
to their
made them.
budget.
There was no choice.
Right,
Yeah,
That used
just
to be
looking at
like
it as an
50
emergency
grand.
Yeah.
funding source that, you know, if you can all agree on the appropriateness of the use, then
Mhm.
it's good to have, rather than having to wait all the way until the next special town.
Hmm,
Mhm.
right.
Any other questions?
Well, the other thing that you said here, and I think it's good, that collective bargaining agreements are funded at the current staff levels. You know, all the retirement benefits are all in there. So I think that's important to,
Right. And the retirement benefits are estimated, I think. that,
Yeah.
Like we estimated an increase in the retirement cost by 7% and an increase in the insurance, or in the insurance cost by about 4%. And we won't know exactly what those numbers are probably until April.
Yeah.
But we'll probably find out the retirement numbers a lot sooner, but at least the insurance numbers we won't know usually until then. So kind of give them a little bit of an estimate as far as what we anticipate it being at this point.
what's the status on the police department moving? Are they moved?
They are not moved. We are working out some IT issues right now, and
Is it
once those-
close?
We're close.
Are the wires installed?
Wires are installed. Right now,
Good.
it's
That's-
endpoint hardware that we're working on, security systems
Okay.
and telephones and computers. That's it. We got the hardware, or we got the
Connection.
the connections in.
just tying it all together
Now it's just
now.
now it's just the final,
Good.
that
Great.
final stretch.
Mhm.
I was
Good news.
trying to work on that, on punch list before this meeting, but
Yeah, no, that's good.
Had the selectmen or the selectmen's office been notified that there's a problem with the Ruggles Lane roof?
no.
Nope.
No, 'cause that's interesting, I was just talking about that.
'Cause I attended my grandson's basketball game last weekend, and they have buckets out in the gym collecting water that was dripping down.
What year did we put that in?
I
Still
think
paying
that
for it.
part is the newer part, isn't it, Leaf? The gymnasium?
The newer part is over the cafeteria.
And that would be the gymnasium, too, that end towards,
Mhm.
Yeah, it's the one with the dome on it. That's the roof that we are paying for now.
I was just wondering if you had any idea what was going on with that roof?
We didn't receive
Not
any
brought
budget.
to our attention.
Yeah, it was never brought to our attention. We received no capital budget request for it. This is the first time I've heard of
Mhm.
it. So,
Maybe the selectmen could inquire about, if there's a problem up there?
Yeah.
the,
See if they know what they do or don't have for warranty currently on it.
Yeah.
I was
A lot of roofs
curious.
have 20-year warranty, so even an older roof might still be under warranty, I don't know.
the only.
I don't know when, like, different sections were redone, I just
Right.
don't have that history.
Yep, the only requests that we've received are outlining the capital improvement.
I saw
budget.
that, yeah.
So,
Mhm.
Okay, can I make a motion to accept the minutes that we have here? From Tuesday, November 14th.
Shit, I lost them.
That was before the special town meeting, correct, Faye?
Mhm. Yep.
You can make that up. I would.
There, second.
Oh,
Second.
Any discussion okay? What? Oop. I'm gonna, take the vote, favor, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain, because I wasn't at that meeting.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
Andrew, that's a nice job.
The next rendition of this, what I'm hoping to do is meet with each department head and establish a set of goals for this year, and include those goals as part of the budget, in the budget document, to say that this budget looks to achieve these things, because that goes back to the cover letter that says that this is to be a goal-driven budget. So, that's what I'm hoping the next rendition of this looks like.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So when you're meeting with the department heads, will they be coming in to meet with the
Yes,
finance committee?
the next meeting, the next meeting is, for the, it starts with the department heads coming in and present their requests to you guys. I'm talking on the, as far as a review level, because I haven't had an initial review of department heads. I want to, my first sit down with them to be setting goals for themselves, and then when we look at the 1 year from now, we'll see how far we've come to attain this.
And then will they be coming to meet the board of selectmen also?
When is the next meeting, Faye?
I think that's,
Oh, we've got
2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, we've done the dual meetings with
Yeah.
finance and select board.
24th.
Yeah.
I believe that's it.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you
Yeah,
about
but
that.
this
I
is
didn't have a
all
chance
off
today.
because-
So the
yeah.
schedule that originally went out with the budget letter is off
Yeah,
by a meeting.
1 week,
So I'm gonna
mean, one
plan on
meeting.
sending out a
a new one.
Revised.
correct, a revised
Okay.
one, and we did have a couple departments that called me and said, hey, I can't do that date, so I'm gonna be shifting that around, but I
Okay.
think the next date was the 24th.
24th is the next
Oh.
meeting.
Okay.
January. That's your next finance committee meeting, and that will be your first meeting that these departments will be coming in,
Good,
okay?
yeah.
They can sell their budget why,
No,
they want.
so
They-
you'll be emailing
most cases
out
more
a
than what
new
was
one.
Yes.
Yeah,
recommended.
'cause I was wondering when our meetings were, and I looked this.
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, we're just off by a
Yeah.
week, which I think the snow and everything kind of
Yeah.
throws us off,
Oh,
which is
that's not
fine.
bad, that's
So
good.
I'll send out, like a reminder on the next meeting, tell
Good.
you who's coming in, make sure those departments are all set to come in.
Yeah.
And if you have anything revised,
Yeah,
He'll send that
I'm
out.
anticipating that we'll stick with this version of it, and then March 1st, I'll come out with a revised version based off of what our, the cherry sheet numbers from the governor's budget look like, maybe what our estimated revenues are, and some of the larger numbers that come in. And hopefully by that point, we'll know at least what the school is thinking for their budget. So.
And when will we be discussing the capital improvement?
I still have to schedule a meeting with the actual capital improvement committee to finalize, to get everybody on the same page. Is that we kind of had some initial meetings, but because of one thing or another, we've had to push meetings off. But I'd like to at least be in consensus with that committee to know that they agree with my draft recommendations or have other ideas before we all discuss it. But at the same time, all of that's dependent on our reserve funding for the most part. There's only one item on that list that identifies as a general fund item, and that's the annual cost of a police cruiser. And
Right.
because if we're gonna get into a replacement program, we'd want to include that as a general fund revenue rather than that reserve fund revenue, if it's the intent to keep up with.
Do one a year, you mean?
If it's the intent to do one per year, let's raise and appropriate those funds. We can do that as a separate article at town meeting. It doesn't need to be in the police department's budget. But as long as we know that we're raising and appropriating these funds and everything else in the capital project, or capital plan is either being taken from free cash, or we have a long-term goal of putting that in debt service,
Mhm.
then, and including that in the next year's budget. So,
Do
Yes, sir.
you intend to start showing that though in the police department budget that you review here?
The general fund yes, I would.
So
but
somehow it would
right.
show up until you put it in. So I'm wondering if it is just better to put it under the omnibus budget at town meeting as well, whether you create a separate account number or not, so that they understand that this is a yearly reoccurring fee that we are now trying to put under the general. I'm just curious, because otherwise, now what they're doing is voting for an article versus just voting for the budget. You'll find that the budget passes much quicker than individual articles. And if we think it works financially, then it might be better to just put into the budget. Still put the account, if you want a separate account item, police vehicle replacement account. So you're not hiding it, but I'm just
Making it
suggesting,
part.
because that makes the town
It's-
realize that's kind of your operating budget versus the articles. They wonder, well, where's this getting funded? Because half the time we put the 5 different options on funding when we write the article.
I mean, the thing
You
is,
just
still
read
a
an
capital.
article on it.
It's still a capital
It's
investment.
capital.
Yeah, and, you know, other departments will want dump trucks in their budget too, so. I think we gotta keep it
It's,
separate.
you keep it separate.
Okay.
It's-
But, no,
I hear you.
yeah, either way.
It's if we,
Yeah.
you know, again, it's kind of like how do we all want to look at this?
Right.
Because yeah, I see that they want to get it as, we have 6 cruisers, every 6 years we need a new one. If we do one per year, then we're not thinking, then we're not thinking about it. So it's just how do we want to present? What is the best means and methods of presenting that number at town meeting?
It's a capital investment.
Well, I think his, I think.
If it's gonna show up every year and it's the same one every year.
Yeah.
It's.
I think
no.
your point though, to put it under the.
Only if you think it's a financial sound decision. If you're questioning it, then yeah, you call it out as an article and say, I want all of you to decide.
Because
If you think it's the right way to approach it,
Mm.
maybe you,
I mean, part of
Yeah,
that too is
timing.
last year at, town meeting, the wastewater budget was amended by
Mm.
$45,000 for a capital
Yeah, I know.
request. It wasn't presented that way,
Yeah.
it was just, we're amending the
Mm.
wastewater budget by
And
$45,000.
no explanation,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
about
But-
another truck.
Right.
Right?
That was the intent of it was, and they put it as part of their overall budget.
Right.
So it's not that, I mean, I'd like everything to be handled the same way across the board.
Right.
So it's, how do we want to handle
I think
that?
any
Do we want-
vehicle purchases should be a
Yeah.
separate
You've gotta-
item.
Yeah, I think
Because otherwise-
historically, capital purchases
Separate.
have been separate.
the question with vehicles though is a fine line
Mm.
of a capital investment because they depreciate so fast depending on a particular department's use. A dump truck is probably gonna get you 10 years with good maintenance, where a police cruiser apparently with the use and the time and
It's the
they die quicker. So it's harder to almost call that a capital improvement versus just, that's just your vehicle maintenance. Rather than investing in a dead car, you're just getting a new one.
it's just like uniforms.
But that is just all a perspective, so I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just thinking of I've heard people talk about that type of thing a little differently. Even though the cost is high, if you're doing it every year, it's a good question. I'm not
And
held in any
when you
direction.
put an article on the warrant like for this year, if you, explain on town floor even, let the people know that this is something we've decided to purchase each year to keep a rollover of, so they understand
Right. Well,
what it is.
One thing that we were talking about, concern a little earlier today was that we know that going into next year's police department budget, there's gonna be some, some adjustments. And some of those have been illustrated here, been illustrated by the chief in his requests. We know that, based on impact bargaining could impact that budget. So you see you see an increase. Whether or not that, including a capital improvement, including a cruiser in that, we almost don't wanna threaten the police department's budget from being completely shot down at town meeting just because of one item that's in there, and people looking at a big, a big increase just based off that. So, again, it's 6 of one and half dozen of the other in how you wanna present that, and do you really wanna, risk having your police department's entire budget shot down because you wanted a cruiser? So,
Then another way too to look at it is, I know years past, they need a cruiser, we realize that, we don't have the money at annual town meeting, once we get certified free cash, we revisit it in the fall and we've purchased them then, I think we just did this at the last one.
Right, but this year, we're gonna have that free cash number
Earlier, I understand
going
that.
into annual town meeting, so you're not gonna have a new free cash number. You'll have
yeah, you'll have
what we don't
stabilization.
spend out of it still, because it's not until the following June 30th technically you have to commit it. So you can revisit whatever you didn't spend out of it. I was incorrect on the 4-month window, it's more like a 16-month window. It's, you get certified and you have until the following
No, it's only,
fiscal year end.
only a 4-month window.
June 30th.
Well,
It's from when it's certified
Yeah.
now to this June 30th.
But Richie's
How
correct, in the
come-
past, we've
why
had,
if we got certified,
Because
like we had,
So when we
what
went
was
to
it, FY16 certified almost at the very end of FY17.
Mhm.
you took that number and you put
We just had,
90% of it into stabilization.
Stabilization.
right, special town meeting, we just funded out of stabilization,
Right.
Correct.
You're talking about two different funding
two
sources,
different funding
No,
sources.
but all reserves.
You're,
the certified free cash number.
Was
I
high.
thought we had, we did that all within that,
We did it at
Okay.
annual.
for some reason I thought somehow we somewhat wrapped a fiscal year a little bit with our delay in getting something done, so I misremembered, that's
But
all.
I think Rich is correct, in the past, we had free cash certified on time, which
Yeah.
allowed us to have a fall meeting,
Right.
because it was certified much earlier.
That's how it works.
So, yeah, in the past, we did do that.
and we used to be able to get the certified in November, and it was for the June annual meeting, with no
Yeah,
specials.
I'm not saying that we are currently on time. We're still delayed,
We're delayed.
but
We're
we're
in a
gonna
better-
have it a lot better.
It's better now than
I
it
see what you're
was.
saying.
Yeah.
You're saying this current FY18 could be certified if we meet our deadline early in November or something, so we could have a special town meeting before. I followed it, okay.
Mhm.
I misunderstood, no.
Yeah. If we were right on top of everything right now, we went in and boom, you just submitted your
books in
Schedule A
August.
in September, you could have that free cash certified in October and have a meeting in November. But we're not at that point yet.
Gotcha, okay.
We're closer.
Yeah,
Good idea.
that's all I got.
So your next meeting is January 24th,
Fourth.
2018.
What time do you want to start? Leaf had mentioned earlier tonight, an earlier start on our meeting times.
6 would work better. But
Doesn't
that's up
matter to me.
That's up to you guys. if you
I
want.
think 6 is fine.
6 is fine
I
with
like
me.
things, we're all retired.
I have a day off every time we have a meeting.
Well, yeah.
So you guys want to do 6 o'clock on the 24th?
Sound good?
Yeah.
That's
all right with you?
Andrew? That
Works for me.
That's fine?
Works for me.
So I'd make a motion to start our next meeting on the 24th
Fourth.
at 6 PM.
Second it.
How does that affect you, Selectmen?
Ooh,
6 is the earliest I generally can make it without having to get out of work early.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Okay, aye, okay.
Great. Who seconded it?
I did.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sounds
Nice
good.
job.
Andrew, one
Nice
question.
job, Andrew.
Are the Selectmen on Netflix now? or what?